Mheshimiwa Wambui, I'll begin with you on this one because the president is talking about the miracle of building bridges, and that reminds me of what happened after the March 2018 handshake that ended up birthing a Building Bridges initiative. I'm just wondering how the president is now able to use the same words. Why do politicians take Kenyans for a ride?
I think that's a very loaded question. And maybe you need to ask those particular politicians that keep taking Kenyans for a ride. Starting with His Excellency the President, who after election said that he wants a strong opposition. And that was not said once or twice. He continuously repeated that he wants a strong opposition so that we can keep him on check, so that he can be able to deliver for Kenyans, so that he cannot sweep the dirt under the rug. But what he has done consistently is directly the opposite. We started by procuring, and I use that word carefully, members from the Azimio coalition. He started immediately after the election. In fact, we came in as a majority and immediately were confined to the minority because of the members that had to jump to his side. And he has continued that onslaught up to now. His intention was to destroy Azimio. And I can tell you, there are people who think he has succeeded, but I don't think he has. But I know he's not pulling any stops. He intends to make sure that all Kenyans that are in political space are aligned to his cause. And he's doing this purely for the future election, not because of the interest of Kenyans. So I think Kenyans need to be very careful and watch their leaders. And sometimes some of these things are historical. I mean, it happens every so often. And let me tell you, the kind of democracy we practice in Kenya is a joke. Because when we were elected, and I'll tell you this, when we went to the last election, we in Azimio wanted to form government. And it isn't wrong to not form government, because if there are two warring factions or competing forces, one will win, the other one will not. And we also must realize that the Constitution confined us now to the minority because of what happened immediately after the election. But then we also have to understand there's also a mandate in the minority. And that is why even if you look at the standing orders, the Constitution, it recognizes the offices within the minority side. And that is why you have things like the oversight committees. All of them have an advantage of one. Despite the minority being less in the House, they are always given an advantage of one extra member in the committees of oversight. That is PIC, that is PAC, that is Implementation Committee, all those committees that do oversight of the executive, to give them an advantage, to give them a chance to be able to oversee what the executive is doing. Now, when the executive buys members from the minority, then it means that the government members of the ruling coalition and the members of the minority coalition will all be working together. And then now the question begs, who speaks on behalf of Kenyans? That is a quagmire we are in. That is a mess that we are in as a country. And I wish my colleagues who seem to be leaning towards the executive would understand their role, which is in the Constitution. Because spending weekends dancing in jigs in the villages with the president and shouting helter-skelter that that now we are all when you are not in government, the government is bad. When you are in government, the government is good. And I ask myself, so who's going to speak for that Kenyan who is in Nyanza, whose child cannot go to university because they were placed in the wrong band? They cannot afford fees because the money being given through bursary is not enough. Whose child is sick and they cannot afford medical care. Those are the things we should be asking the executive to do and preparing ourselves so that if we get into that position, then we can provide solution. I think we are headed completely in the opposite direction of where we should be as a country. Many years after independence, I thought now Kenya would have provided free education, free healthcare, but we are still politicking. You finish an election and you start campaigns for the next one. And now I'm asking myself, if the president is looking for re-election, what happens if he was, God forbid, was to win the next election? When now he would not be looking for another election, when would he ever work?